Disclaimer, classes in Trove are built very much the same, so if you have watched any of my other build guides, then there is quite a lot of things that will repeat itself, but you can bypass those parts by the timestamps in the description. Also, my guides are always updated, so if I was to stop doing YouTube, those guides would go away. No misinformation will be out there, and I will always update my videos/guides if something major happens to the game content. If something minor changes, it will be in the description. Hello guys, Wahoo here, back on the video. This time around, we are doing a build guide for
the night.
Yeah, so the intro is going to be very much the same as if you've seen it before. You can skip ahead to maybe the demo or something else. But yes, the intro is going to be different just with which class we are going to do. Basically just telling you, if this is your first time watching one of these build guides, what you can expect from the video. So as you can see right here, I did make it into chapters, also indicated by timestamps, which is in the description or on the video. And first we are going to start with a 5-minute demo, just showcasing the class, what abilities do it have. Kind of just showing off, not going into detail what they basically do, but just showing them off, and maybe that will interest you at making one of these classes one of your mains. After that, we are going to do a quick look at overall stats for every single class. So for this class that you're watching right here, we're going to do it for that one, and also in general we are going to talk about stats. For example, like crit hit and crit damage. That's going to be some generalization right there. And then we are going to move into gear and everything there's on the gear page. That is, of course, banners, allies, head, face, weapon, and also rings and food, emblems, flasks, so on, so on. Everything there is in the gear page, we are going to go over that one as well. Then we are going to cover gems. Mostly we're going to cover the empowered gems, of course. We're also going to talk a little bit about the smaller ones, but mostly we are going to go into the big empowered ones, or the big gems, that is. And then for lastly, of course, as you can see right here on the screen, we're also going to talk about the star chart, or the talent tree, as I basically call it. So that's what the intro was all about, just letting you know what the chapters are and how it is going to work with the timestamp. So you can skip ahead if there's something you already watched. You can skip ahead to doing that, or you can basically watch it all if you feel like you want to do that. But that was the intro. Now we can jump into the demo. Alright guys, let's talk about the knight in more detail. So let's just go over all of what I have here. I do want to say that the knight is a physical damage character. It is a melee class as well, as you probably saw in the demo as well. But on this one, it can be a little bit slow if you don't use abilities to move around, and you can do so. I will go over that when we go into the class gym, because you need, if you take the class gym, you won't have that movement speed. And also there is a ring hidden power in there that you can get as well. I'll show you guys that in the end as well about that. It's not all of the ring powers I'm going to show for all the classes, but the knight one do have one for the movement speed, but it's not something I super recommend. So it's just really if you're really going to min-max do that. It's not a big movement speed boost, but you do feel like you're pretty slow when you're moving around. But see, I'm not very fast, but I get the job done. That's what I'm trying to say. But let's get over the stats. So for the helmet, I do have a Crystal 3 helmet here. Of course, the max health and the light is given. You can't change that. You want critical damage and you want attack speed, because when you are attacking, it feels very slow when you're trying to kill things if you don't have the movement speed. You can also go for a little bit of attack speed, but or not attack speed, movement speed instead of the attack speed if you really feel like you're too slow. But again, you can use your number 1 ability. That's a 1. If I use it right here, you can see it shoots that one because I have the class gym. But if you don't, you can actually move. So if your class of your knight doesn't do that, it's because you don't have the class gym, and so on. But the best alternative here is the magic find, because you can't not have the attack speed or the movement speed. You can sacrifice the critical damage, but I would never sacrifice critical damage for movement speed or for attack speed. I just rather do the damage than have the movement speed, because there is mounts and stuff you can get around on. And the knight is a little bit crazy because the subclass you cannot use. Usually you use the knight subclass, but since it is the knight, it doesn't benefit from that subclass. So I wish they would change subclasses to also benefit the one it's on, so it would have its own class, subclass, and then another subclass class, basically, to kind of buff those subclasses, because it's kind of sucks for the knight that one of the best subclasses is not used for this one, and you are pretty slow when you're riding that mount. You can definitely feel the difference. So like I said, for the head or for the hat, I would go for critical damage, magic find, or attack speed. You can also go for some health if you want to do so. The magic find is not a super, it's carved in stone, but I would love to have attack speed and movement speed. The ideal if they would ever change that, but they haven't done ever, right? It would be critical damage, movement speed, and then attack speed for all of these. That would be super amazing if they do that. For the melee weapon, for the weapon, you want physical damage and light. That's always on these, of course. I went for the attack speed. I didn't go for the attack speed. I went from the critical damage and then go for the movement speed, because again, you could again go away from the attack speed, but I also went it for here, and it's really up to you how fast you wanna go here. Again, you can sacrifice the attack speed for movement speed if you want to do so. I did that for the weapon, also because I got this weapon, and I was like, oh cool, and then I went for the magic find, because you can again, I would love to have movement speed, attack speed, and critical damage, like those trifecta instead of the magic find. Magic find is just okay. Maybe again, you could go for some max health, but you do have the death defying, which we'll talk about a little bit. And you don't, you run out of charge, then you die. So, you kind of want to go class cannon with all of these classes. I'll probably say it a bunch of times, but yeah. Also for the face, you do want to go for the physical damage here. You can also again go for the movement speed again instead of the attack speed, but the physical damage just does so much because it just helps that critical damage go up like crazy. And when you do have that 100% crit, I do have 141%, which is way over what I need. You might as well go for all the critical damage. I feel like critical damage is the best stat in the game, besides for the magic damage or physical damage. Of course, you want to hit that 100% critical hit, but I feel like that is the most, because attack speed actually comes from quite a lot of dragons. Again, you can go for the movement speed, but you have the mounts to get in there, and when you're in there, movement speed doesn't really do anything for you. Like when you're in that fight, movement speed is really not going to do it much for you. You can't just jump on your mount. It's not like if you're in combat, you can't jump on your mount. That's very different from some games, right? So if you're in combat, you can just jump on your mount and then get out of there, basically, if that's something you need to do in a fight. So again, I feel like attack speed is the way to go, but it's really up to you. If you want to be a speedy guy, then go for the movement speed. It's not set in stone, but you know, if you want to maximize your damage, that's how you want to put it up there as well. For the ally, I went with the Ernie because of the light, but also the 75, I was about to say, 25 physical damage, and also it gives you a protective shield to do so. It's not too hard to come by. There is a few. Another one you can actually get. I did do it. If you go to the description, I did link my ultimate guide, ally guide, and goes also for that one. And there is a one that could be argued that is better. You know, the knight might have a rework in the future, and it might change the, you know, these, it won't change crazy, so it won't be like completely different. It won't change for the stats and stuff, it just changes what it, basically abilities does. And you might want to have some cooldown reduction ally here instead, but you can also get that with the different, with the emblems and stuff like that. For a banner, it's just a, you know, a banner. You want to, of course, go for a U10 banner, of course, and that's one, well, just one with a physical damage. Doesn't really matter. The other stats are not super significant, so you can pick whatever you want. Of course, you just want a physical damage one in there as well. So for my ring here, again, you want to, of course, get a crystal ring. I'm not, like, again, it's not super important which ones you get, because the third stat of it is not super crazy, but we can talk about the hidden effect, which is the overcharge. If I go right over here to the ring polishing station, you can see there is an iron will and overcharge, and our overcharge is the one that you know, gives you the movement speed when you use your #1 ability. It still works if you use your class gem, but basically you move forward going like this. I can actually take out this class gem because it's not going to cost me anything, and I can see I move forward like that. And I just do this, and then you see if you have enough energy regen, which is something you could have on your ring. If you have, it doesn't have to be jumps. Jumps is also fine because you keep yourself in the air. And again, if you have a Ganda, for example, you know, jumps is also kind of cool, but not as much as it is otherwise. But again, you do this, and then when you use this, you get a bit of a movement speed increase for a while, and then you can use it again. And it works, of course, you know, walking, but it doesn't really do much when you're in the air, but that's just how it basically works. So for food, it's a free range. If you've seen one of the other videos, that's usually the food what I use. And then, of course, always the martial emblem, the martial, and of course we have the two, the arcane and the martial. That's what I call it. These two, the one for the magic and one for the physical. I'll take that anytime. Then we use death defying. You can use any flash you really want in here. If you have a lot of magic find, for example, you can use the magic find one that has a trigger, like this one, for example. Triggers recover a chance if you have a magic find. So if you have about 8,000 magic find, this is actually significant. You would actually get a lot more charges, but the thing is, you do have to use these yourself, where the death defying uses it you know, on just on low health, and then it restores you back up, and you can only die if you it can actually bug out sometimes. It's very rare, but it does happen. But it automatically, you know, uses when you're on low health, so you can just run around and don't worry about it. But of course, keep an eye out. When you run out of charges, you do have to that. But when you get like way into the in-game, as I am, you know, you have a lot of charges, and it starts out with 10 flask capacity, which is really good in the beginning anyway, so it's not really crazy. But if you do have to put your counters down a bunch of times, but yeah. Then also the other emblem over here, you can basically go whatever you want. You might want to go with the trailblazing. That does give you movement speed when you do use your flask. So there is a combination of all that, but I do like, and I've used this on my other one, the bountiful one right here. The bountiful has a chance of not consuming a charge. And I feel like it works really well for the end game. You can also use Sure Strike, of course. Sure Strike if you don't have a 100% critical hit yet. Like of course, when it comes to over 80% critical hit, it kind of significance becomes worse and worse and worse. You can also use one of the allies, one of the allies that spawns a little ally. When you do that, it kind of do damage, but I like the bountiful one because it has a chance to not consume when, of course, it automatically procs, but also when you use it yourself. I've tested that. It works both without and with. I'm using the unwielding one, the one that gives you a shield. I can just use a potion. You can see it gives me a green shield around me here, and that gives you some protection. It does help more for melee classes than it does for range, because you're basically in there, right, and you are defeating things. But you can use that one or the trailblazing if you, again, want to go faster. There's also the chrono Pyromancer if you want to get that cooldowns down if they do change it in the future, so keep that in mind as well. But let's talk about the gems. Let me put this one back there, and this is again basically what the class gem does. Instead of, you know, you sprinting, you do this damage. It does significant damage when you do this one. Again, it might be changed in the future, but you can basically see that if you're gonna play the class. If you follow whatever, my channel for example, I'll let you know when that rework comes in and we can go over it together. Of course, we can also just talk about really quickly about the subclass. I use the Lunar Lancer because it also gives the physical damage, but you would rather have the you know, the mount. There's also a few other ones that are pretty decent. Of course, the one from the Solarian, but Solarian, you know, kind of hard to unlock if you don't buy it and stuff, and it takes a lot of grinding. It's not impossible, but it does take a while. So I'm not recommending this one, mostly because it's just hard to come by, but it's pretty good. As also it has the light stat, which is one of the in-game stats. You know, you want to have basically as much light as you can. Then you want to go for physical damage, and then basically you want to go for as much light as you can. Then you want to get a 100% crit hit, and then after 100% crit hit, you want to get as much. Still keeping, of course, has as much light as you can, but also as much physical damage and as much critical damage as you can get. So that's the only stat you really have to worry about if you go into it. Just all the physical damage, and then 100 crit, you know, 100% crit there. Attack speed is again just a nice thing. You don't need attack speed per se. It's not like you have to have attack speed. It just feels very nice when you do on the knight, because right now, as the knight is right now, you basically just auto attack, and then of course as much light as you can do as well. But yeah, I go with the Lunar Lancer because it also had damage reduction. So Lunar Lancer is pretty nice. If I could have the subclass of the knight, I would have it on it here as well. But you can also go with some more magic find if you want to do so. Critical damage, there's a few options that are not terrible. Usually what I tell people about the subclasses is go with the one you have leveled up the most or has the most power rank on, and just use that one. And if you have two that is very similar to each other, then decide which ones you feel like you want to do and read the description and test them out. It doesn't significantly change the classes in crazily. It unfortunately doesn't do that, but it is something you can play around with, which if you feel like. I give you some suggestions, but yeah, you can go with what you want. So with the gems we were talking about, we got, of course, the class gem. That's the one that it doesn't charge anymore, but then it sends out this one, this spirit squirt. I think that's what his name, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it basically shoots. What it does is it does this, right? So that's what the class gem does. Then I have the mojo. You really don't need this one, but since you are in it, it actually does kind of okay. But it snares basically the ones around you, so they don't move around that much. So even though this is kind of not a thing you kind of want, you kind of want the explosive. I don't have the explosive on this one here. I do have the stun burst, which also makes a ring, but stunning enemies, again, this is more going for more of a crowd control build, if you can say it like that. But basically if you really want to, you know, main the knight, you want to go for the pyro disc, and you want to go for the explosive one. The explosive and the pyro disc, these are the two you want to go for. This is more of a crowd control build where you have the stun burst and the mirror. And it's because I don't main the knight, it's just more of that what I wanted to go. I wanted to go a little bit different way than usually what people do, but go for the pyro disc. If you want to go something different than the I really don't know what you would go for the third one as a knight, because the pyro disc and the explosive is what you do mostly. You could go for one of the stun burst or the whatever, but I would go with the class gem. It also might be changing in the future. It might be even better in the future, where it does many other things and whatnot. But all you really want is just the pyro disc and the explosive, and then you can whittle in one of these if you don't want to go for the class gem. And then of course for the cosmic one, you want to go for the vampiric if you are farming more, or if you are doing bosses. I want to go with the battler, the berserking battler. But if you're farming, I would go for the vampiric, because then you heal yourself back up. You don't use as many charges if you're just casually farming. You just want to go with this one. So usually it's always the vampiric or the battler. The battler just gives you more attack speed, but that only gives you attack speed when it procs, and it procs kind of all the time. But the point is, it doesn't give you like the attack speed. Like it's not like equip and then you have the attack speed. It's not like you know an item like that, right? So, and also gives you light, which is really nice for killing bosses. So the vampiric wouldn't really heal you up that much if you're doing bosses. It's just much better with the battler. So it depends on what you do. Again, you can just swap them out. If you do have both of them, just swap this one out, put in the battler if you're doing bosses, and then the other way around. So that is what I went for with the knight. You're always welcome, again, to in the description, let me know what you did with the class. Also, again, keep an eye out for any reworks that's coming. If something significant, of course, changes with the class, like the stats, because this time I didn't really go over what the abilities though. You kind of saw them in the demo, right? But this is more, just for the stats of which ones you're gonna go, and that's not gonna change in the rework. It hasn't done in the last 4 reworks we've had. So they don't change the stats, they just change around the abilities to make them more fun. And hopefully in the future, the knight will also benefit from its own class ability. So yeah, that was the knight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And then let's move on. All right, so now we got the physical damage part. I don't know if you saw the magic damage one, but the physical damage one looks very much like the magic damage part, because this over here, you got, of course, still the critical damage, which there's a lot of great notes over here. You do have to spend 1 point right here, which gives some magic damage to get into here, which I think is a little silly, but that's just basically how it is. But there's a lot of great physical damage notes going through up here. There is a little bit of a note out here. I was kind of debating with myself if I should get out here, because it is a lot of points again going out here. But it does give you 5% magic damage and physical damage. But yeah, it's not super great out here. And that's the same thing if you saw the magic damage part. The green ones means that they're okay notes out here, but you really don't want to go for them, because you can see there's many notes going in there, so it's not really necessary. You can see the other ones, the red ones are sort of like more clumped together, which means that they're just really, really great. And my idea with this was that you would go through the magic damage part and then, or critical damage part, and then you can go for the physical damage part first, and then of course the the critical damage part, and then you can go either this way or this way down here. So these sort of the things I would definitely go for a physical damage character. Go through the physical damage, critical damage, and then out here with the light, there's a little bit of good light notes out here. Again, also kind of a nice note here. You don't have to go very far, but it gives a little bit of critical damage. But other than that, you don't want to go further through this. There's some nice flask notes, but yeah, flask is not like a permanent. I just feel like the permanent buffs are just a little bit better, because it's going to give you all the time. So if you don't have any flash charges, it's not going to give you the same. So I'd rather go for some hard facts or hard stats, if you can say it like that. So yeah, this is the physical damage part. Again, you can pause the video if you want to see which ones you want to go for. Again, it's just my opinion on which ones you should at least be aware of. So that's it for the video. Click the video on screen that's coming up right now. YouTube thinks you might like it. Also check out the description for all my ultimate guides that goes into more specific things in Trove. And also hit that like button, would help me out very, very much. Also consider subscribing. And that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.